No. The air changed. Mom didn't yell. She never yells. She just tightens the room around you until you can't breathe, and then calls it your anxiety. Pete, my stepdad, had moved to the front door and turned the lock. Click. He didn't look at me. He never looks at me when he's choosing her. Lila stood. She walked straight to me and slipped her hand into mine without a word. That tiny, simple move made Kendra's smile twitch. Mom had sighed. Shane, take Lila outside to see Daisy. Your sister needs to think. Don't touch her, I'd said, but Shane already had. He'd reached for Lila's wrist. Lila made a small sound, more surprise than pain, and Mom said, See? She's stressed. She can't be around this. My stomach flipped. They were manufacturing the story in real time. Unstable widow, overwhelmed child, responsible relatives stepping in. They didn't need me to agree. They needed me to sign, so it looked clean. Now, on the porch, Shane held the pen closer. Just do it and we'll talk later. Mom leaned in, breath smelling like mint and victory. Be reasonable. Let us help. Help. Their favorite word for control. Lila's fingers dug into my coat like hooks. Mom, she whispered again. Please. I could feel my body wanting to bargain, wanting to beg, wanting to do the humiliating dance that kept me invited. But then I looked at the booster seat with no straps and the way Kendra had already opened the back door like Leela was a package to be loaded. She wasn't safe. Not emotionally. Not physically. So I did something I'd prepared weeks ago, in a quiet panic, after Mom tried to pick Lila up from school. Just to surprise her. Aiden, I pulled out my phone. Shane's eyes narrowed. What are you doing? I tapped the screen twice. Sending a copy of this, I said, nodding at the paper. To my attorney, and to the school, and to the district office. Mom's smile finally cracked. You don't have an attorney. I met her gaze. I do now. Kendra's voice sharpened. You're being dramatic. Dramatic would be screaming, I said. This is documentation. Shane's hand tightened around the pen. Stop. If you do that. I already did, I said softly. The engine idled. Lila trembled. And my family stared at my phone like it had teeth. Shane swallowed. Liv, come on. Mom's voice went even gentler, which is when she's most dangerous. Undo it. We can start over. I wrapped my arm around Lila, pulling her behind me, and for the first time tonight, I didn't care if the neighbors heard. You wanted safety, I said. You're about to get a judge involved, and if you try to put my daughter in that car again, you're going to learn what consequences feel like. Shane's confidence didn't break right away. He pretended it was a bluff, the way men do when they've never been told no with paperwork behind it. He lowered the pen, but he didn't step aside. Instead, he shifted his body between me and the front steps, keeping me on the porch like I was a guest who overstayed. Give me your phone, Mom said, still calm. You're not thinking clearly. That sentence was her whole religion. If I disagreed, I was unstable. If I cried, I was unstable. If I stayed quiet, I was unstable because I was shutting down. There was no version of me that wasn't a problem, unless I was obedient. Lila peeked around my hip, eyes fixed on Daisy's doghouse in the backyard. Daisy whined softly, confused by all the tension. My chest ached at the thought that my daughter came here for a dog and ended up watching adults try to trade her like leverage. Come inside, Mom said. We'll talk like a family. Kendra lifted her hands, palms out, as if she was soothing a skittish animal. No one's taking her. We just want what's best. I stared at the booster seat again. No straps. No headrest. What's best is not putting a child in a moving vehicle without a real car seat. Shane's jaw flexed. We were going to drive slow. That's what they always used. We'll do it carefully. We'll do it gently. We'll do it for her. And somehow the harm still happened. Just quieter. I kept my voice low for Lila. "Step away from the car." He didn't. Instead, he held up the guardianship paper like a shield. "You sign. This goes away. You refuse. We call for a wellness check. You know how this looks, Liv." Mom nodded, satisfied. "Exactly. Think about Lila. Do you want strangers in your house? Do you want social services involved?" There it was. The threat with a bow on it. My hands were shaking, but my brain was clear. "You already involved strangers," I said. "That's why I have an attorney." Mom's eyes flicked, tiny, toward the living room window. That's where Pete stood, half hidden behind the curtain. He'd been listening the whole time. He didn't come out. He never comes out when it matters. "What attorney?" Shane demanded. I didn't answer. Not because I didn't have a name, because I did, but because my family would call her, charm her, intimidate her, find the crack. My mother could make a stranger feel guilty in under a minute. Instead, I looked at Shane and said, "Let us leave." Kendra scoffed. "Where? Back to that cramped apartment with the neighbors who fight." My stomach twisted. I hadn't told them my neighbors fought. I hadn't told them anything about my building. Shane's eyes slid away. He knew he'd slipped. A detail felt wrong, like a picture frame slightly crooked. "How do you know about my neighbors?" I asked. Mom waved a hand. "We hear things. People worry. People. Or someone had been watching." Lila tugged my sleeve. "Mom, can we go now?" I swallowed. "Yes, baby." I took one step toward the driveway. Shane moved with me, matching my pace. "If you walk off, you're proving you can't co-parent with your family." "I'm not co-parenting with my family," I said. "I'm parenting. You're interfering." Mom's voice sharpened for the first time. "You're making this ugly." "You started ugly," I snapped, then forced my tone down again for Lila. "Go get your shoes from the hall," I whispered to her. "Run. Fast. Don't stop." Lila hesitated. She looked at my mom, then at Shane, then back at me. Then she bolted inside through the crack Mom left in the doorway, small feet slapping on tile. Mom spun. "Olivia." I stepped closer, lowering my voice so only she could hear. "If you touch her again, I'll tell the school about the time you tried to pick her up without permission." Mom went still. "That was a misunderstanding. I have the camera footage." I lied, because I didn't. But I had something better. I had the principal's email where Mom admitted she forgot to tell me. Mom's eyes narrowed. "You'd ruin the family over one mistake? You're ruining my child over your ego," I said. Behind her, a thud. Then Lila appeared with her sneakers half on and her backpack dangling off one shoulder like she'd been training for escape. She ran to me and grabbed my hand. Her palm was sweaty. She didn't cry. That scared me more than tears. We moved together toward my car parked at the curb. Shane tried to angle himself in front of us. "Don't," I warned. He laughed, but it sounded thin. "You think a text to some lawyer scares me?" I held his gaze. "It's not the lawyer that should scare you." His smile faltered. "What else did you do?" I kept walking. "I filed a report with the state. About something you've been hiding." The words landed heavier than I intended. Kendra's face went pale. Mom's lips parted. Shane's voice dropped. "What report?" I opened my car door and buckled Lila in properly, hands steady now that I had one job. "Keep her safe." Then I looked up at all of them standing there, stunned on the porch, and I said the one thing I knew would hook their fear to the ground. "I didn't just send a message," I said. "I attached evidence, and you've got about 4 minutes before your phone starts ringing. If you're still with me, tap like and subscribe, because what happened next made me realize this wasn't just family drama. It was a plan, and the plan had been running long before that porch. I drove straight to a 24-hour diner off the interstate because I didn't trust myself to go home. Lila sat in the back seat, silent, hugging her backpack like it was a life jacket. I kept checking my mirrors, half expecting Shane's headlights to appear. Inside the diner, the waitress brought Lila hot chocolate without asking. That tiny kindness almost broke me. Lila sipped, then said in a careful voice, "Are we in trouble?" "No," I told her. "We're safe. You're safe." She nodded like she wanted to believe me, then stared at the window. "Grandma said you're sick in your head." My throat tightened. "Did she say that to you before tonight?" Lila shrugged. "Sometimes. She says I have to be extra good so you don't get mad." I felt heat rise behind my eyes, sharp and ugly. My mom had been poisoning my daughter's sense of safety, one gentle sentence at a time, and I'd been too busy surviving to catch it. My phone started buzzing the moment we slid into the booth. Unknown number, then Shane, then Mom, then Pete. Over and over. I let it ring until Lila went to the restroom. Then I answered Shane's call. "Undo it," he said, skipping hello. His voice sounded different, tight, frantic. "Whatever you sent, retract it." "I can't retract a report," I said. "You didn't file a report," he snapped. "You're bluffing." In the background, I heard Kendra crying. Not sad crying, panic crying. "Shane," I said quietly, "why are you scared if it's nothing?" Silence. Then Mom's voice cut in, suddenly on speaker. "Olivia, stop this. You're hurting everyone. Think of Lila." "Of course. Always Lila. Always my child used like a shield." "Don't say her name like you own it," I said. Mom's breath hit the mic. "Your brother could lose everything because of something he did," I replied. Shane hissed. "What evidence? Where did you get it?" I almost laughed. That was the crack. They didn't ask if I'd lied. They asked what I had. After Mark died, I cleaned out his work bag and found a flash drive labeled "Shane Do Not Trust." Mark was never dramatic. If he labeled something like that, he meant it. On the drive were photos of invoices, bank transfers, and a spreadsheet showing Shane's charity for grieving families. His proud little nonprofit paying thousands to a shell company that led back to his own account. Mark had been the electrician for the office. He'd overheard enough to know it wasn't a mistake. He'd told Shane to fix it or he'd report it. Shane had laughed, then invited us to dinner the next week like nothing happened. 2 weeks later, Mark was dead in a crash caused by a truck driver who fell asleep at the wheel. The crash wasn't Shane's fault, but the timing sat in my body like a stone. I'd sat on that flash drive for months because grief made everything heavy, and because part of me still wanted my family to be safe. Then Mom tried to pick Lila up from school without telling me. That day, I hired a lawyer and asked what I could do to protect my child. She said, "Document everything, and if you have leverage, don't waste it." So tonight, when Shane shoved guardianship papers at me, I used the leverage. I didn't tell him any of that. I just said, "You should have let us leave." Mom's voice sharpened. "You're doing this for revenge." "I'm doing this so my daughter isn't taught that threats are love," I said. Shane's breathing was loud in my ear. "If investigators show up, they will," I said, because I sent the file to the state attorney general's tip line and to the charity bureau. Kendra wailed in the background. Then a new sound. A ringtone. Someone else's phone. Shane cursed. "They're calling." Mom's voice turned pleading, almost tender. "Olivia, honey, please. We'll tear up the papers. We'll forget tonight. Just make it stop." I stared at the empty booth seat across from me, imagining my mom coaching Lila to be extra good. Imagining Shane yanking my child by the wrist. Imagining that booster seat with no straps. "No," I said. "You don't get to grab her and then negotiate." Lila slid back into the booth, cheeks flushed. "Who was that?" I covered my phone. "No one important," I said, and that was the first true sentence I'd said all night. Because in that moment, I realized the most important person at the table was sipping hot chocolate and watching me for proof that I would choose her, and I would. I took Lila to a hotel instead of home. I told the front desk we needed a quiet room away from elevators, and the clerk didn't ask questions. Lila fell asleep fast, curled around a stuffed bunny. I sat on the edge of the bed with my laptop open, watching my security camera feed from my apartment like it was a heartbeat. At 2:13 a.m., my phone buzzed with an email from my attorney. Emergency petition submitted. Judge assigned. Expect contact. At 2:19 a.m., my doorbell camera lit up. Not at my apartment. At the hotel. I froze. Then I saw them in the grainy image from the hallway. Mom in her wool coat, Shane pacing, Kendra clutching a tote bag like she'd packed for a baby shower. Pete stood behind them, hands in pockets, face blank, like a man who'd been told where to stand. My stomach flipped. How did they find us? Then I remembered. When I booked the room, I used the same email tied to the loyalty account Mom had insisted I join. So we can share points. I'd laughed at the time, thinking it was harmless. Nothing with my mother is harmless. I slid the deadbolt quietly and pressed my ear to the door. Mom's voice floated through the crack, syrupy and loud. "Olivia, sweetheart, open up!" "We just want to make sure Lila's okay," Shane muttered. "Tell her it's urgent," Kendra added, too bright. "We brought her pajamas." My hands shook as I texted the front desk. "Family is trying to access my child. Please call security." A minute later, Mom knocked again, harder. "Don't do this," she warned, the sweetness thinning. "You're scaring Lila." Lila wasn't even awake, and Mom was already blaming me for the fear she manufactured. Security arrived in a navy blazer, calm but firm. "Ma'am, you need to return to the lobby." Mom straightened like she was about to play the victim in a church skit. "We're her family." Shane stepped forward. "We have guardianship paperwork." Security glanced at the paper, Shane waved, and then at my peephole. "Sir, that doesn't authorize you to disturb guests." "Please." Mom's eyes flashed toward my door. "Olivia, this is ridiculous. Open up so we can talk." I didn't open. I spoke through the door, voice low. "Leave. Now. Or I'm calling the police." Kendra's voice cracked. "We're trying to help. You're making her grow up without cousins." "You already made her grow up," I said. "You just didn't like who she became." There was a pause. Then Shane hissed. "If you keep this up, Mom's going to tell the court about your episodes." My skin went cold. Episodes. The word he used for the nights I cried after Mark's funeral. The nights I couldn't breathe. The one time I called Mom and said I didn't want to live in a world without my husband. I'd trusted her with that. She'd saved it like ammunition. Mom spoke again. Softer, for the hallway. "My daughter is unstable. We're afraid for the child." I heard the security guard's tone change. Less patient. "Ma'am, that's a serious claim. Do you have police with you?" Mom hesitated. Shane squeezed his eyes shut like he'd miscalculated. Because this was the detail they didn't expect. If you say unsafe, authorities don't just take your word. They ask questions. They document. They look both ways. Security escorted them away. I watched through the peephole as Mom turned back once, eyes hard, not loving, not even sad. Just angry that her puppet was cutting strings. When the hallway finally went quiet, I sank against the door and slid to the carpet. My chest hurt. Lila stirred, blinking at me in the dim light. "Was that Grandma?" she whispered. I forced a smile. "Yes, but she's gone." Lila's voice was tiny. "Did I do something bad?" That question hit like a punch. "No," I said, crawling onto the bed beside her. "You didn't do anything. Adults are supposed to keep kids safe. Some adults forget." Lila pressed her forehead into my shoulder. Are you going to let them take me? I held her tight, feeling her little ribs move with each breath. Never, I said, and I meant it. Even if the next morning brought court papers, accusations, and the kind of fight my family loved best. One where they could pretend they were rescuers, because now I knew their real plan. They weren't trying to help me. They were trying to get access to Lila before the state started asking Shane questions he couldn't charm away. Court moved faster than my grief ever did. 2 days later, I sat in a small hearing room with fluorescent lights that made everyone look guilty. My attorney, Marisol, slid a folder toward the judge. My mother sat across from me in a navy blazer, hair perfect, eyes damp on command. Shane wore his good guy face. Kendra clutched a tissue like a prop. Mom spoke first. Your Honor, we're terrified for our granddaughter. Olivia has been volatile since her husband passed. She isolates the child. She refuses help. The judge looked at me. Miss Hart, do you have anything to say? I wanted to spill every memory, every tiny cut my mother called love. Instead, I did what Marisol coached. Facts, not feelings. My family tried to remove my daughter from my custody without my consent, I said. They did it with a vehicle that didn't have a proper car seat. They threatened to call the police and claim I'm unstable if I didn't sign guardianship paperwork. Mom's lips parted in practiced shock. That's not what happened. Marisol stood. We have the paperwork, she said, handing copies to the clerk. Already filled out, presented under duress. And we have school emails showing Mrs. Caldwell attempted an unauthorized pickup last month. And Mom's face tightened. She hadn't expected the school to be part of the story. Shane leaned forward, voice sincere. We were trying to protect Lila. Olivia's finances are a mess. She's moving constantly. The child needs consistency. The judge's eyes narrowed. Miss Hart, are you moving frequently? No, I said. I relocated once after my husband died because the rent increased. I now have stable housing. Mom's gaze flicked. Sharp, like she smelled money. That's when Marisol opened the second folder. Your Honor, there's another reason this guardianship request escalated suddenly. Miss Hart filed a report about Mr. Caldwell's nonprofit finances. The report was submitted the same night the family attempted to take the child. Shane snapped. That's irrelevant. The judge held up a hand. It may be relevant to motive. For the first time, Shane looked scared. Not angry. Scared. Mom recovered fast. So she's retaliating. She's using a child as leverage. I laughed once, bitter. No, you used a child as leverage. I used evidence. The judge asked Shane a few questions about the nonprofit. Shane tried to charm his way through, but he stumbled over dates. Kendra's hands shook. Mom kept cutting in, and the judge's patience thinned. Then Pete, my stepdad, cleared his throat. Everyone turned. Pete rarely spoke in court, or at dinner, or anywhere Mom could hear him. Your Honor, he said, voice flat. I locked the door that night. I shouldn't have. And they had a plan. They talked about it for weeks. Mom's head whipped toward him. Peter! He didn't look at her. They said if Olivia signed, they could keep things in the family before the investigation started. A.T. The room went very quiet. The judge's pen moved across paper. Temporary restraining order granted. No contact with the minor child until the full hearing. Miss Hart retains custody. Mom's face crumpled like she'd been slapped. Shane stared at Pete like he'd just watched a betrayal. Kendra started sobbing for real this time. I didn't celebrate. I just exhaled, long and shaky, and reached for Lila's hand. Because winning in court didn't erase what my daughter had already learned. That family could smile while stealing your air. The full hearing never happened. A week after the restraining order, Shane's nonprofit board accepted his resignation. which is the polite way of saying they shoved him out before the state did it publicly. Mom called Marisol, crying, offering therapy, offering mediation, offering anything that would reopen the door. Marisol told her no. Lila asked about Daisy for a while. I told her the truth in child-sized pieces. Daisy was old. Daisy lived with Grandma. Daisy couldn't come with us. Lila nodded, then stopped asking. Kids don't argue when they decide something is unsafe. They adapt. I changed passwords. I removed my mother from every account she'd ever helped me set up. I updated the school again, adding a code word only Lila and I knew. I installed a camera on my door. Not because I wanted to live in fear, but because I refused to live in denial. 2 months later, Pete showed up alone at a park near my apartment. He didn't bring cake. He just sat on the far end of the bench and said, "I'm sorry I let her run you." I didn't forgive him out loud. I just listened. Mom hasn't seen Lila since that night. She sends letters with stickers and lines like, "Grandma misses you," as if missing someone erases what you did to them. I keep the letters in a box. Maybe one day Lila will want to read them. Maybe she won't. The point is, it will be her choice. I used the insurance and settlement money quietly. I paid off my car. I put a down payment on a small house with a fenced yard. I built a cushion so the next emergency doesn't come with my mother's price tag. Lila sleeps through the night now. She laughs louder. She stopped asking if she's being good enough. I still miss the idea of a mother, but I don't miss the version of me who stayed quiet for her. And here's where I need you. Would you cut them off completely, even if it meant your daughter lost grandparents and cousins? Or do you believe family deserves one more chance after a betrayal like that? Drop your answer in the comments, and share this with someone who's stuck choosing between peace and blood.